What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Soft Pep Garage. I'm gonna jump right into it here. I'm kind of in the middle of a project. I wasn't really planning on filming this, but I thought we could all learn a little bit from this. Let's get to it.
Use your suck down. There you go. There you go.
All right, what we've got here is we've got a new multi-position track bar bracket on the front of an LJ here. LJ, TJ, same stuff. This one is from Ballistic Fab. I will throw a link in the description. This overall is a pretty stout bracket. I am a fan of it. I apologize, not really showing how I got the factory bracket off. I'm sure there are videos about that. If I can find a good one, I will throw that in the description as well. It is a huge pain. It is probably my least favorite thing to do on this platform. Even with a plasma cutter and good tools and stuff, it's a bear. But we have the old one out. Everything is clean, and we are putting a new bracket in. The idea behind this bracket, or this process on this particular Jeep, is we need to move the track bar forward just a little bit because the bracket and bar is hitting the diff cover here at full compression. This also gives us a double shear mount, which is much stronger and allows this joint to move in its correct point of movement versus tweaking on the full extension of that heim there. Now, I have run into a problem, which is kind of a common issue with these universal track bar mounts like this. I have used the Barnes one before. That one is a good one. They were just out when this got ordered, so we didn't use that one. This is a nice bracket because it is a multi-hole, whereas the Barnes is not. The Barnes one is specifically designed for a TJ, which I really like. I will throw a description or a link for that one in the description as well. I've used that before. I love it. I've also built my own. This one is actually built using a mishmash of the Barnes bracket and then custom stuff. This is essentially what we're recreating, is a double shear like this. But the big problem that I'm facing here is that this bracket, because the way the frame bows in around this coil, since the bracket is flat, this bracket is pointing damn near towards the right front of that tire, and we need to be hooked up right there. Right there. And as you can see, there's going to be a lot of stress on this joint here. It does not need to be perfectly lined up. We do have a heim that has quite a bit of misalignment in there, but this is no good. The fact that we're leaned back, not really a problem, but the fact that we're twisted in here because of the way the frame bows in. That is not ideal, and regardless of where we put it, basically from the factory location all the way forward, we're going to run into that problem. So we're going to pop this back off, make some adjustments to it, throw it back up, and see what we got. Since I got everything off right now, I'll just give you a look at the clean frame. I did do the stuff on the back as well because I am planning to plate up the back, even though this bracket does not come with that. We're going to add that. This would normally come down over to here. I'll show you on this side quick. Right here, we cut that off so we can get this up tight against there. And I'm probably going to end up cutting a little bit of this out as well so we can scooch over a little bit more. But we got to get this first. I'm going to start with that. It's about a heavy 1/4 inch, and then we'll just kind of taper it across the top. So, all right, we've got our piece cut back a little bit here, and when we throw it up there, you can see already we've pretty much halved right about there center. So we're almost all the way there actually already. I think the next thing I'm going to do is take a little bit extra out of here, and we'll tack this in place and see where we're at. Again, it doesn't have to be perfectly aligned because we're at full droop right now, and we want this pretty close to lined up when everything is compressed. And as it compresses, this axle will move forward a little bit. So I think if we take care of this, we'll probably be pretty good. So I'll cut that, and then we'll take a look at what we got. All right here we can see the entirety of this joint. It's about 1 3/4 wide. It's actually 1 5/8. It's probably the technical thing, but we'll do 1 3/4. So half of 1 3/4. We're trying to find the center of the joint so we can figure out roughly which one of those holes is going to be similar to stock height. Half of 1 3/4 is going to be half plus 3/8, which is going to be 7/8. So 7/8 plus the height of this. We cut a decent amount off, probably somewhere in the 4-ish range. So 4 plus 7/8, we'll call it 5 inches to center from the frame. If we look on here, my line right there is where the track bar used to be centered. 5 inches puts us actually below that bottom bolt hole. So I think what I'd like to do is actually use the center one and trim this bracket off the bottom. We were having issues with the joint actually hitting here, so I think that is going to run into the same problem. So if we can gain a little bit of clearance there, that'd be great. Ideally, I'd like to use the top one, but we might get into other packaging issues up here. So I think we're going to start with the middle, and we're going to need to not only turn this joint from being vertical, but we're going to need to turn it horizontal. And then since we are going up away from this point a good 1.5 inches, we're going to need to extend the track bar as well, not 1.5 inches, but probably about half that. So we are going to go out about 3/4 inch. Just for start, we don't have to be perfect. This is just to get us in the realm of it, so when we set it down, we only have to adjust a little bit one way or the other. But for right now, we are tacked. We're going to throw this in, set it down, and then make sure that everything clears, everything cycles, and if it does, we can burn that in completely. One other thing I do want to note with this, you can see we are at full droop right now. We're hanging on the shocks. So if we were to go in line with the bottom, nothing here has an issue. The middle, nothing has an issue, but we are getting close to that bolt there. And if we go to the top, I can't even get, it's probably somewhere in that vicinity. and I am touching that bolt on the steering stabilizer there. So regardless of which hole we use, I am going to flip that steering stabilizer bolt around just to avoid any future clearancing issues. We should not have any issues with the body here, and there's lots of room behind that boot. So that bolt really seems to be our only issue, and I'll just switch that around, and then that should not be an issue at droop. So at full compression is really our only next issue, which we won't be able to test completely, but we should be able to get a good feel for it. All right, I just took a break to eat some dinner and had an epiphany at that time, which I'm glad I did. I am so used to working on Jeeps where all of the bracketry is moved and the steering is different and everything. I completely forgot about bump steer and the fact that we need to have our drag link and track bar parallel end to end, which means we will not be using the middle or upper hole. We will be using that bottom hole in order to keep our 2 bars as parallel point to point as we can, and that is really the only option we have unless we do something else. I don't even know what we would possibly do here. I would need to move that end of the bracketry up if I was going to move this one up. I can't really do anything with the steering. A drop pitman would get me in the opposite direction that I am looking for. So we are just going to stick with the lowest hole on the bracket, make sure everything fits and clears, and if it does, we should be good. So this is nice as it simplifies the process, but I'm glad that I caught it, or we would have been in a whole world of bump steer. Alright, I have realized that the holes on the bracket are 9/16 and our hole in our track bar is 5/8. I cannot get the drill in there to drill straight on right now, so I'm going to need to take that bracket back off at some point anyway. So we will wait. For right now, I'm just using the 9/16 to line everything up. It does appear as though we are going to have some interference issues. It actually does not appear like we have gained a whole lot of clearance. It's hard to tell right here, but I think if we were to come down, this axle is going to move forward, and this part of this bracket right here I think would actually be hitting probably right on this lip. So as you can see, the bracket actually tips in towards the back of the Jeep quite a bit, and we are still leaned forward quite a bit, which that part, not huge. You can tell we are using some of that misalignment here, but not a ton. So if we could get a little bit more rotation out of it, that would be great. And if we get this bracket straight up and down, I think we could probably keep it where it is, but getting it straight up and down would move us out a little bit further, get us away from this axle a little bit more. As far as clearance with everything else goes, again, I think we might have some issues with this, but I don't really know. As we compress, this is just going to get further away from this, or at least stay the same. And at full droop, we don't have any issues with this. I'll probably still switch it, but that's really the only thing that I'm seeing thus far. So I think we're going to take this bracket back off. I'll drill my holes out bigger. We'll take a little bit of bracket out of the bottom here to get this to tip flat, and then we'll also take a little bit more out of the side here to roll it back a little bit more. As far as our angles go, I think we're doing pretty good. Remember, it's point to point and point to point, not anything how the track bar is bent. Don't worry about that. It's just point to point. I think we're doing pretty good. If anything, we would want the track bar on the new bracket a little bit lower, but we're not going to get that option. So the only way we could potentially get that option is if instead of cutting this up, I dropped the other side down and held it off the frame a little bit, which I could also do that. That might be a better option. I don't like that because that's bringing us closer here, but as far as angles go, that might be a smarter choice to avoid bump steer. So either way, we're going to pop this bracket off and drill our hole out, and then we will assess what our ability is in order to get that bracket aligned correctly. All right, I took about half as much as I took out last time on this side again, and then recut the top. And then in an attempt to make the bracket longer instead of shorter, I added a little piece of rod on here. That should melt in really nice if we do end up keeping that. And a little bit of tape around here can certainly be filled with weld. Our alignment is quite a bit better now, and we're also not tipped back quite as far. So hopefully this gets us a lot closer. I did also remember to drill out everything this time. So we are hopefully looking a little bit better. All right, we are free from the lift arms enough that it's not impacting. We are definitely not lined up, but let's take a peek and see what the body looks like. As of right now, the body actually needs to go that way in order to reline up everything. However, once it settles, I think it's going to come down a little bit, which will push everything that way. So I think we're going to go just a wee bit more with this. I don't want to get too crazy. We've already moved probably almost 3/4 of an inch here. As far as getting everything aligned, we will definitely need to throw some spacers in there, and then I might need another set of hands to get this where I want it. You can certainly use a ratchet strap and just pull the body and the axle towards each other or away from each other, depending on how you're doing this. I could compress it a little bit, which would help a tiny bit, or if you have a second person, you can have them turn the steering wheel, and since the steering is attached to the frame and the axle, it will actually move the Jeep back and forth. If I'm looking at the coil springs here, it appears that our coil spring is bowed this way a little bit, which tells me the Jeep does need to go that way. Which means a longer track bar, which is, I am honestly quite surprised by how much adjustment this is required. Although I do suppose the factory track bar bracket probably sat inward of the frame. Actually, now that I think about it, it did sit inward of the frame. Having a little bit of issue getting my misalignment spacers back in here. Yeah, the factory track bar bracket, the hole actually sat inbound or inboard of the frame, and we are kind of lined up dead even with the frame right now. So I think that's why we are getting so much added length to this bar. I'm still surprised by how much we are needing, but ooh, that's warm yet. One thing you should always do when you're working with threaded in joints here is make sure you have enough thread still in the bar in order to be safe. I like to look at the width of the thread, which in this case I believe is 3/4. It could be 7/8. I don't think so. I think that's a 3/4 inch thread, and 1.5 times that much. So in this case we would want at least 1 3/16 maybe, 3/8 plus 3/4 put us at 1 1/8. So at minimum 1 1/4 in there. I will mark this and double check my length before I'm all done with this, but you don't want to be running your on your last threads there. It's just not safe. So okay, all right, we are threaded in. As far as clearance goes, we are quite a ways in front of this. We're probably a good inch in front of that. I'm gonna have to think about how I can test this. We're definitely further over, which helps before the track bar bracket, and thus the track bar. We're sitting right about here, and so we're kind of hitting at the top part of the diff cover, kind of at the highest point there. The cover has tipped down. We are actually past the diff for most of it. As this goes up, the axle is also going to move that way. So I really don't foresee any issues. We're in front of it. We're to the driver's side of it. I think we should be very good. I am going to throw a jack under this side of the axle and lift as much as I possibly can, just to kind of get a better visual on how much that's going to have for clearance. But as of right now, it looks like we're going to be doing pretty good. Our alignment down the bar, lots and lots of room. I will need to throw a couple washers in here, and I will probably push the bar, push it forward as much as I can. We have plenty of room to the front side, and I'm just going to keep it away from this diff cover, which was the original issue. Okay, I am at the point where I am actually starting to lift the other tire off the ground. So I think this is a pretty fair example. This Jeep also does not get wheeled super hard. We've got tons of room. We even have clearance between that bolt there. Tons of room up in here, not even remotely close. Yeah, this looks very nice. All right, I think we have found our solution. We're going to set this back down, throw it back up on the lift, and we will finish weld this whole thing in and get some paint on it. All right, guys, we're gonna give you a quick overview now that everything is wrapped up. We did use the bottom hole. We do have a proper alignment. Everything is looking very nice. Could use a little bit more paint on there. Other than that, the only thing we really needed to add was, if you look right here, we have a nice thick washer in there. The mounting distance of this bracket is 2 inches, and the mounting distance of this joint is 1 5/8. So we did need to add a little bit there, and then I left a little bit of a gap so we could squish this bracket together. Otherwise, we're all good there. Everything is tight. One issue, we do not have what I would consider adequate thread engagement here. I like to see 1.5 times the diameter of the joint thread of engagement. So in this case, that is a 7/8 rod, which means we need essentially 1 3/8 approximately thread engagement. I would just round that up to 1.5 to be safe. We are actually looking at about 7/8 thread engagement. So I'm gonna head over to Barnes, order a longer joint for that, and then we'll have plenty of thread engagement. But otherwise, we are all good to go. I know this was a short one, so we'll keep it short. Appreciate you guys for watching. Hope this helps somebody out. Catch you on the next one.